evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here to the Flatout Racing Network's coverage of race number 13 of season 58 of the RTG Talladega Challenge Series. Now, under normal circumstances in the past, we would be welcoming you to the season finale. We'd be delivering your final four and saying that at the end of the night, we're crowning a champion. But a new era here in the Tally Challenge, as this is going to be a two-race final round. The final four drivers are going to have to compile the most points in not just one, but two races in order to bring home the championship trophy here in season 58. I'm Seth Cole, being joined up here in the broadcast booth by both Jessica Shelton and Matt McIntyre. And Matt, can just begin here with you because we ended up seeing, in the past couple of races here, we've had a couple of calm races, we've had some crazy races, especially in the elimination races. But interestingly enough, in the two Talladega races, it's been a non-playoff driver that's gone to victory lane. Playoff drivers have won the following weeks at BSR, so do we see one of our final four go to victory lane here today, kind of establish themselves as the favorite for the championship next week, or do the non-playoff drivers rise to the top once again?
I have a strong feeling that it's most likely gonna be one of the non-playoffs, being it's mostly non-playoff. However, like we saw last week, chaos can unfold, so nobody knows what's going to happen.
Well, being the fact that you're saying that, Matt, you got to remember though, some of these drivers are looking at big picture racing, so they might actually not be willing to push the issue with a non-playoff driver to win the race. Just finishing ahead would be probably what they want to do, just to ensure themselves safety to the next round.
And that was something I was going to bring up to you, Jess, because you've been in this situation. You've been in the Final Four to compete for a championship here in this series. But that was in a one-race finale, though. I mean, doing this over the course of two races, if you're a Final Four driver, are you looking for consistency, kind of just a top 5 or a top 10 here today, or are you gunning for that win and maybe putting yourself in a predicament in the final few laps where you may lose more points than you gain?
Well, when I did it last time, and the only time I actually did do. Oh, okay.
Looks like we're going to reset.
All right. Well, when I was doing it last time, though, it was different because obviously I had different priorities, and I mean I had the shot to win, but my goal that whole race was to keep the other championship 3 in sight. Whether they're in front of me or right behind me, I wanted to keep them in my sight. I could care less whether we're leading, getting the top 5 or whatever. I wanted to keep them in my view, in my sight, whether I'm ahead or behind, at least close enough to where, if something happened, they were going with me, or, I would finish around where they are and not lose too much.
I have to chuckle to myself because you say keep them in sight. And if I recall correctly, in that finale, you and the other championship 4 finished in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. If I recall correctly, I think you were
I don't know. Was that the one where Joe won the championship?
I think it was. I think it was you, Seminara, Despirito, and Grant. Yes, yep. And I think you guys all finished nose to tail in that race, which was something I don't think I've ever seen before.
And honestly, if you go back, each of us at one point in the race were leading the championship of that race.
Yes, and that's actually something we're going to be bringing up here as well. We ended up talking with series admin Josh Metallic before we came on the air to get an idea of what to look for the scenario of how the champion is going to be decided. And we'll be giving you guys those details in just a moment. Luckily, we got that reset. I don't know what it was for, but it's going to give me time to be able to run us through our starting lineup. Bernie Mobbs getting the pole position via the random qualifying here tonight. Mike Rogers was slated to start on the outside of the front row, but you see he's taken the voluntary EOL. Keith Hughes sharing row 2 with Bob Dixon. Jeremy Jeffries completed the top 5. He's in row 3 with Cy Jones. Row 4, Donnie Garrett and Ken Robertson, the top 10 completed by one of our playoff contenders, that being Brian Schilling, the defending champion of the series as well, and he shares the top 10 with Craig Hagley. In row 6 finds Dave Melson. He's alongside of JT Mayhew, Brian Lavelle, and Tom Dixon. They're back in row number 7. Row 8 is going to be Jim Black and Wayne Pribnow. Row 9, Wiley Coate and Tim Nofsker. And then the top 20 will be completed by Denny Carroll and John Godfrey. You got 2 of your playoff drivers making up row number 11. That is Grant Wesley on the inside and Rodney Sullins on the outside. Josh Metallic, he's in row 12 with Kelly Causey. Metallic just missed out on advancing to the Final Four last week. Doug Hewlick, He's back in row 13, and the final of our Final Four, Joe DeSpirito, starting all the way back in 26th position. Richard Martin, he's back with Jason Scheck in row 14. Row 15, the top 30 completed by Terry Bombard and Mark Paglia. 31st starting spot goes to Jeff Crivello. He's with Glenn Harris back in row 16. Row 17 going to be Brian Ronson and Greg Palmer, and completing the 36-car field here tonight will be Bob Seminara and Bobby Farrell. 4 drivers going to be battling it out for the championship here. 3 of them multi-time former champions in Wesley, DeSpirito, and Schilling. Rodney Sullins making the Final Four for the second time in 3 seasons.
Is it just me, or am I lagging
for that
on
championship
the thing,
trophy.
or is the whole server lagging?
Not seeing lag on the broadcast end right at the moment.
Okay, so it might be me. Just letting you know ahead of time I might fall out then.
Alrighty.
Or something, I don't know.
Now the Sitco Dodge of Bernie Mobbs gets us underway here tonight. 66 laps of racing at Talladega Super Speedway. And it's going to be interesting to see how tonight plays out, because we've had a little mixed bag here in the terms of both of our super speedways, whether it be Talladega or BSR. It's been survival fest on one side of the spectrum, but it's also been races of execution with long green flag runs and green flag pit stops. So it'll be interesting to see how tonight's race, what kind of storyline it follows.
And you can see
really
they're all side by side going in the corner, but back here you've got Tim Knopsker and Tom Dixon along with Wayne Prim now really just, I'm not sure whether they're purposely holding back right now or whether they're just really already lost the draft right away. I'm not really sure. So you see Bob Seminara trying to peek out on the high side. They're right now, in my opinion, they're getting ready to settle themselves into a position where they can take advantage if we get the green flag pit stops. I mean, gain more spots now as much as you can.
And we ended up getting told that we're basically treating this final round as 2 regular races. It's the driver of the Final Four that accumulates the most points by the conclusion of next week's race at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. One of our Final Four could win here tonight, but that does not automatically gain them the championship. Same if we ended up having one of our Final Four take the checkered flag next week at BSR. It's whoever accumulates the most points, and the bonus points do come into play. Most laps led and lap led bonus points actually do come into play to determine the champion here in this final round.
And that really might set a chain reaction during cautions, depending on who wants to hit under caution and stay out that extra lap, or even let alone people wanting to stay out an extra lap to lead just to be off sequence. So we got to look at that when that time comes as well, if we actually get green flag stops.
Going 3 wide, Ken Roberts jumping up there to the top. And one thing that kind of jumps out to my mind, we've talked about this. We started out with, I think it was 13 drivers, and then we whittled it down to 8, and then we whittled it down to our Final Four. With every driver that gets eliminated from round to round, that is a driver that then changes from playoff driver to non-playoff driver. At the drop of the green flag here tonight, the playoff drivers were outnumbered 8-1 in terms of their chances of picking up a checkered flag here at Talladega this evening. Brian Schilling holding the 5th position right now. He currently would have the most points of the playoff drivers, but this is a super speedway, so it's going to constantly change during the course of this race.
I have to ask, Seth, with this one being Talladega, and we've seen what happens when it comes to BSR, or Burnt Screwdriver Raceway, BSR track. Do you foresee any differences on how they're going to race tonight versus next week?
I don't think you're necessarily going to see any differences. I mean, this is the track that the drivers are the most familiar with, obviously. We documented that when we came into this season, announcing that it was going to be the alternation between Talladega and BSR. But at the same time, a lot of the drivers that we talked to that are up here in the Final Four, or any of our former playoff drivers, have said they really like the way that BSR races as well. So I think you're going to see the playoff contenders, specifically your Final Four, they're going to approach this as if we were starting out the season, race number 1 here at Talladega, that be at the front, stay at the front mentality. A couple of them did not get the benefit of good qualifying efforts. I'm seeing some of them trying to remedy that. Saw the neon yellow number 88 of Grant Wesley, who started from 21st. He's up there high, wide, and handsome 3 wide with Josh Metallic trying to make his way now into the top 15.
And Joe's back here in, 22nd at the line at that point in time, battling Padley on the outside. I mean, being put in a 3-wide position isn't good at all, but Joe's currently in that middle line, Seth, and all it takes is one person to dive down there, and that middle line is going to go back. So I don't know. Would you, at this point in time, would you actually want to risk trying to make that line work where you are, seeing how it's 3 wide in front of you and possible 3 wide behind you? And would you actually want to try to go to the high side or the bottom and get out of that, just in case you get in that sucker hole and just cannot do nothing? Because you see, it's taking 3 or 4 of them bumping in order for Joe to even stay with attached to the back end of the 41 of Denny Carroll.
I think you and I talked about this last week, Matt, and the fact that I think you do have to actually try something, even if you may not be all that comfortable with it, because if you just kind of ride behind the truck that you're following, you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to be boxed in. You got to make something happen if you're in the middle of the pack to work your way forward. It may not necessarily work, but you can't blame yourself for trying.
Yeah, but then also, as we've seen, like Jess alluded to, one minor mistake by somebody 2 cars ahead, 2 or 3 trucks ahead of you, can just ruin your race. So you just gotta see who you're around and figure it out from there.
I'm seeing them 3 wide, several rows deep here. I mean, we just completed lap 8, and right now the only people we see technically that really need to do something is Joe and Josh and Grant up here. I mean, they're trying to make that high side work, but it just looks like it's only gaining a little bit of ground from point to point, and it doesn't seem like JT Mayhew can actually do anything with that middle line. It's like it's not even wanting to go with Brian Lavelle right behind him. So I mean, I don't know whether you want to be right where JT is right now, or whether you want to be up there where Grant is.
Yeah, I mean, we've ended up hearing from the drivers, if you have a line to your top and a line to your inside, that middle line actually does stall out. And to your point, Jess, we visibly saw it's almost about 2.5 truck lengths between the back bumper of Craig Hagley and the front end of JT Mayhew. You can visibly see that gap there again. The 338 doesn't have damage. He's not off the pace. It's just a matter of the lines around him getting the momentum, and he's not able to get what we call the suck up there to be able to get up to the back bumper of the trucks that were in that middle line ahead of him. So it's a sticky situation, but we're seeing right there, Grant Wesley all of a sudden looked like a couple of drivers migrated from middle to bottom. Drivers from top migrated to middle, and Grant Wesley starting to drop back there along with Josh Metallic and Doug Hulick. It's Brian Schilling continuing to be the top runner of the final 4 contenders. The last time by, it looked like all 4 of them were up inside of the top 18, though, with Joe DeSpirito in the 18th spot.
Well, I'm also wanting to tell you this. I just saw Crivello push up and almost get into the side of Jim Black here. It's got my attention that they're also, some of them hitting the apron and kind of pulling off a little bit on the exit of turn 2. So with the way they're racing now, 3 wide so deep, they really got to be careful and mind their P's and Q's, because coming off of turn 2, that high side wants to come down. And you know how I am when I race this track. I want to push up off of turn 2 pretty bad. And then we got that big issue, Seth, the big one, the tri-oval, where we've seen so many problems so far this whole season.
There was a moment off of turn 4 that I saw the 82 of Keith Hughes actually get down on the apron. I thought that there was going to be a checkup on the inside line. So we've avoided a couple of cautions here already, even though it may not visibly look like it, with drivers getting those left side tires down the yellow line.
And I'm looking now, and all 4 of the championship trucks are just about right together.
There's a lot of checking up on this bottom right here. It's like looks like they're chain bumping all the way back, Seth. I mean, that's one thing you've got to always expect and anticipate, which you can't really even anticipate it, but you know it's going to happen. You just don't know when and where. It's that checkup on that bottom, because someone wants to get a huge run on someone else in front of them, and you don't know if it's going to be right there at the beginning or the middle or even between the middle and the end of the corner, and you just never know where it's going to happen. And then your first instinct is brake. And when you brake so you don't run into someone, what happens? Someone hits you, and then it's all chaos from then on. But so far, so good, Seth. I mean, I don't know how long it's been since we've seen 3x3x3x3x3 and 12 laps so far of clean racing. We know it's gonna pick up. It's gonna pick up.
Yeah, we've seen racing like this towards the middle portion of the race, but to your point, yeah, it's been a while since we've seen it at the beginning of the race, 3 wide, sub rows deep. I mean, we were 3 wide for the lead that last time by with Garrett, Jeffries, and Mayhew. I think Mayhew ended up, no, actually, I'm sorry, that was actually Donnie Garrett that won out in that 3 wide battle to the line. But yeah, last week we ended up running almost 50 laps, caution-free, not incident-free, but caution-free at BSR. It's been a little while since we've not seen an early yellow here at Talladega, and these drivers doing a good job keeping it together. I want to touch on something that you were talking about just with the checking up. Now obviously, you know, when our viewers are tuning into these broadcasts, we try and kind of give them behind the scenes of what goes on that they might not necessarily think about in types of races like this. And one key thing is communication to the drivers around you and behind you. And we know this. We've been in races like this. There's a communication when there's a checkup of notifying the driver 3rd, 4th, 5th in line that there's a checkup. Please lift. Do not run us over. But sometimes, even when you've gotten that warning, it's hard to gauge just how much checkup there actually is going on 2, 3, 4 trucks ahead of you.
Yeah, I've been in positions on here where I've heard a couple people, and I'm just going to use them as an example, say, you know where Schilling is running right now in front of Joe. If I'm way back here, roughly where Kelly Causey is, which is like 4 or 5 trucks back, and Schilling says checking up, all I hear is the word checking up. Sometimes they don't say, oh, bottom's checking up, or you don't recognize the voice right off the back of your head because you're so focused on everything else going on. So you're not processing it because you're so focused on the moment of what you're doing, not what's going on ahead of you in that lane. And at that one lapse of a moment, it could be all over in a heartbeat.
What we got right now up here in our top 5, you got Donnie Garrett, former winner this season, but was not able to advance into the playoffs. Ken Roberts looking for his first victory on the year. I think you got to go 3, maybe 4 seasons back to his last victory. Craig Hagley, we've been very impressed with how he's been able to, in his first few starts here this season, kind of adapt to this group. He's currently in that 3rd spot, looking for his first career win. We've had a couple of those here this season. Doug Bulick obviously being one, Keith Hughes being another. Bernie Mobbs got the pole. He's been up in the top 5 all day long. Been a while since he's been to victory lane. And then Keith Hughes was a must-win situation last week. He ended up bringing it home. I think it was inside the top 10. But he wasn't able to advance, and obviously he'd love to be able to be the first and only 3-time winner on the season in that number 82.
I'm sorry about cutting like that. Oh, there's a little bit of checkup. Pavlia trying to get down in front of Oscar up here. I'm watching these guys, and what I was about to mention when you got done with your train of thought, but it was just too much going on with Wayne Premno hitting the wall, going way up high and whatnot, and then like I said, Pavlia almost getting with Novsker there on the bottom. These guys being 3 wide like they are, we're on lap 16. We're about to start seeing pit stops and that light flashing left and right. These guys have got to sort themselves out prior to coming into pit road to get on that bottom, and then they got to play nice going into pit road, because we saw at the end of, I mean, I know I wasn't here, but I watched the stream back. Pit road is where if we're not going to see main cautions this race, pit road is going to be where we see the incidents at.
I mean, how many times have we seen this season how pit road has been, almost to your point, the deciding factor into who's going to win the race and who isn't, into who's moving on to the next round of the playoffs and who isn't. And usually, more often than not, we get into a long green flag run like this, we have that first round of pit stops. If we end up staying green, the field gets spread out, which makes the likelihood of the continuation of the green flag to fly more and more likely. One mistake in the early going of the race could have catastrophic results by the end of the race.
Absolutely, and here we go. We got Dixon coming down. Paglia was really low there. I thought Paglia might have tried, but Paglia did not. He kept going, so Here we go, Seth. They're starting to pit a little bit. I mean, it's lap 18 now, so I think this is a lap or two before they're actually forced to come in. So, I mean, we also got to look at who might stay out to lead a lap, because right now I don't think any of our Championship 4 have got at least one lap led yet.
I mean, do you do that right now if you're one of the Championship 4? Take the opportunity to get that bonus point here and now? I see Brian Schilling jumping up there to the second groove. I think the 4 might be staying out this lap as the top 4 ahead of him might be coming to pit road, so might be thinking right along the lines you were just discussing there, Jess.
Well, here comes 2 more, and looks like Craig Hagley has the lead at the moment, has on point.
Boiler cut out in the grass.
Oh,
no.
Wiley! DMR.
Speaking of.
Well, Novsky up the red, right through the middle.
And Wiley Coate just spun right in between Bob Seminaire and Greg Palmer, who had those pit stops at the back. That was a very interesting area to spin.
Let's see. Schilling isn't making a move on Hagley right now. He's right there in front of Dave Nelson on the back stretch. They're coming into 3, so I don't know where your focus is at the moment, but yeah, Schilling looks like he's content to ride right there up behind Hagley. He's probably going to pit this lap most likely.
Yeah, Hagley's coming in this lap, it looks like. He was way low there.
Whoa, don't lock him up.
Oh, Keith Hughes!
Oh, there we go!
Trouble.
Dave Melson, Hagley, Hughes.
Godfrey.
Harris with door banging there with Paglia. Metallic, I'm not certain if he got forced out beyond the commitment line or not, but he is on pit road. He did get a little piece of that. John Godfrey got spun around there as well.
He got clipped, and it goes back to what we were saying. You got to be very, very, very careful when pit road happens. Oh, wow, Wayne Primnell got shot back at the back end of Keith Hughes there a little bit.
All off the racing surface, so you see we are still under the green flag here as Joe DeSpirito looks like maybe might cycle out to the race lead.
And to touch on something, and I don't mean any harm by saying specific drivers here, but remember last week, pit road played a key factor in black flags and penalizing drivers to come back in. We saw Bob Seminara lose his chance to advance. We saw a moment of a lot of issues where I forgot who was doing it. I want to say it was Metallic, but I don't think it was. Maybe was it Josh? So, I know it was someone who went a lap down and was lucky enough to get back on the.
Bobby Farrell, I think it was.
No, I might have been thinking about Rodney.
Oh yeah, Rodney Sullins.
I think I'm thinking about Rodney was the other championship contender I was thinking about. I mean,
think Farrell went a lap down in that race too, but he got a lucky dog late.
And Godfrey apparently left the TS3, so I mean he is out of the race.
That's a tough break there for John Godfrey. Ever since swapping over to that NASCAR Hall of Fame livery, luck has just not gone his way. He was involved in an incident last week that cost him a good finish, and then this week, I guess that pit road incident, he just calls it an early night a third of the way through this race. As you're seeing the new race leader, first playoff driver of our Final Four to lead a lap. It's the winner from last week at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway, Joe DeSpirito in the 24.
Here comes Schilling. Schilling's got a run on Jeremy. I don't know where he's going to take it, though.
Uh-oh, guys. I'm looking at my telemetry, and I'm hoping it's wrong, but it's showing speeding penalty on 38 Rodney Sullins. Let's see if...
No, it is not. Here he comes.
Here he comes. Black flag on the 38, and this is what we were talking about. You cannot afford early mistakes because there's no guarantee that a caution will come out later on to be able to get you back in contention.
Now looking at this,
you talking about it.
Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
And I also noticed while you were talking about it, Seminara also had to come back down.
Yeah, I was about to touch on him. Good job, Matt. Rig. Anyway,
he's there in the 82 going a lap down.
It sounds like he's in third gear still.
Yeah, we ended up noticing that with somebody a couple of weeks ago too, where they were running by themselves, and until they ended up getting draft, they were running in third gear. So
yeah, Keith just switched to fourth gear when they just went by him. So I mean, that could be something also. But with Godfrey retiring out of the race, does that affect anything with points wise? You think at all with the top group?
Not at the moment, I don't think. I think definitely next week when we end up having drivers, if they DNF, I think that will come into play. But as of right now, since it's a clean slate, all 4 drivers starting with the same amount of points, no bonus points carried over from the last round. I think as of right now, it's basically just this is our building blocks for next week on where the final 4 end up finishing this first race of the final round. Just to update on where the final 4 are after that first round of pit stops. Obviously, you can see Joe DeSpirito showing the way. Brian Schilling's right there in that lead pack. He's currently in the 5th position. Grant Wesley, he's in 10th place, but he is currently 3rd truck in the 2nd group, about 3 seconds behind the lead pack. He is inside the top 10 in 10th place, though, and we saw Rodney Sullins having to serve that penalty. He came down pit road. He is still on the lead lap, albeit 35 seconds behind race leader Joe DeSpirito in the 30th spot. So the 38 car needs a caution now.
Wait,
And
so Ronnie actually got through last week?
Yes, he
I
did.
have no idea where my mind was. I'm sorry.
Had a top 5 run last week, as a matter of fact. It was just barely, I think it was 3 points, I think, that he advanced over Josh Metallic.
Yeah, my mind was thinking Josh was in it. I'm sorry. He got the little gecko. The Geico gecko.
I don't think he has a gecko on his truck.
Yeah, I'm going to harass him later on.
Yeah, that's disappointing, right? How can you have a Geico truck and not have a gecko featured somewhere?
See, the only reason why you would be disappointed in it was because of Casey Mirror. So sit down. All right, so Seth, now that we've gotten a little bit of a run going, didn't really get a chance to do it last week, unfortunately. But what do you say we take a moment to step aside and give our sponsors for the series right here for FRN a little bit of a shout out?
Yeah, absolutely. So if trouble breaks out, we'll break in. You'll see everything that's going on here as we continue under the green flag at Talladega. But as we take you side by side, we're going to get a word from our sponsors, Ultimate Garage Floors. Following presentation of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series on the Flatout Racing Network is brought to you by Ultimate Garage Floors. Ultimate Garage Floors is very active in the garage remodeling community, staying current with the latest technologies and custom configurations so that we can bring you the highest quality installations. As a Northern Virginia Exposy flooring installer, we focus on garages and commercial flooring to perfect our craft and bring you high results. In a space that gets as much wear and tear as your garage, you want to be able to trust that the cabinets and flooring we install are ready to withstand against high traffic and regular use. That is why we include a lifetime warranty with our services so that you know we stand behind the quality of our work. To get started with a free consultation, call us at 540-931-9006 or visit us on the web at ultimategaragefloorsva.net. That's ultimategaragefloorsva.net. Welcome you back here to Talladega Super Speedway as we're nearly halfway home in race number 13, playoff race number 5 of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Tally Challenge playoffs. Joe DeSpirito continuing to show the way. He's led the last 9 laps, the only of the final 4 contenders to be out in front. But you've got Brian Schilling, Grant Wesley up here trying something on the high line, and this group is rapidly approaching up to the other of the final 4 contenders, Rodney Sullins, who had that speeding penalty on the first round of green flag pit stops. He's about to go a lap down.
And I just want to point out, I don't expect them to do it or anything, okay? But remember, we got some people who are friends that are allies around here that are, you know, synced in, synced out regarding lap down, possibly about to be lap, or you get my point. At any point, that could play a spoiler to some of these drivers as well for hopes or something. Like, not just lap drivers, but actually, you know, non-playoff drivers that might be willing to take risks to try to help their friend or their ally. So we
Rewind
got
to last week. Joe DeSpirito won the race. Donnie Garrett, who finished second to him, said, "My goal was to push that 24." Well, look where they're lined up, first and second place here.
And we have to go back to that. And I don't mean any harm by saying this, but we go back a long ways. I don't know how many seasons back, but remember, we always had this slight little rivalry between Garrett, Seminara, and the Florida gang and all that mess. And now you look at them now, they're to the point where they're willing to work with each other. There's no rivalry there. It's only like competition rivalry, but there's no aggressive rivalry like they used to be. So, you know, times are changing. Circumstances change too.
And one thing I think that's kind of taken away the stranglehold that the Florida gang used to have has been the implementing of the random qualifying. A lot of drivers that you wouldn't normally expect to see at the front, and drivers that wouldn't normally want to be up at the front, starting up at the front. I mean, there have been several occasions during the course of this season where we've seen drivers that either were up on the pole, outside the front row, or even up inside the top 5. They kind of threw up the white flag when we rolled off the grid and said, "Nope, I'm not comfortable being up here. I'm going to take a voluntary EOL and start at the back of the pack."
Yeah, and if we ever go back into that pattern of going back to the actual qualifying, Matt, I think you and Dylan need to come over here and learn a thing or two on qualifying.
Oh, wait, hold on. Matt's out-qualified me before, so...
No.
If anyone's got to learn, it's me.
No. That's a lie. The only reason why he out-qualified you is you secretly wanted to give him a chance to make him feel good about himself. Don't lie.
I need to take lessons from Flatcaster. He's got a pole this season in this series. I have none.
3 wide back here with Bernie. Right in front of Bernie, you got Seminara, Melson, and Wiley. They're going to settle it out. I mean, this is a point of the race where they're starting to, you know, really relax on what they're doing. And you see Jeremy go to the bottom, Joe and Donnie go down, but at that point when Jeremy went down, Grant made a decision to go up. So, I mean, at this point in time, Grant, I think, is trying to do anything he can to get at least one lap down, 1 lap led, so he can, you know, at least, I would assume, tie Joe DeSpirito back up.
Yeah. I mean, we know Grant. He wants to be at the front and stay at the front, so no surprise to see him cutting his way up through the field. He was, I think I said 10th when we cycled around that first round of green flag pit stops, and now he's knocking on the door of a podium here right behind Jeremy Jeffries. Grant's a 2-time winner this season. 1 victory, of course, his last one back at BSR, but his first victory that locked him into the playoffs was here at Talladega. So he is, I believe, to double check, I think he's the only driver that has a victory at both here at Talladega and at BSR here this season. I'll double check on that. I know Keith Hughes, his 2 victories, they took place here at Talladega. I'm not certain. I believe those were the only 2 two-time winners. Yeah, so Grant is the only one that has won at both venues here in season 58.
And I do want to point out, you got this big pack where you got from the DeSpirito course with a few lap cars in there, all the way back to Bernie Moms, which is labeled in 13. But then JT Mayhew, with these guys racing side by side up front, it's not a big effect, but it slowly is reeling JT Mayhew in, and then all of a sudden now they've lost. They were like 9 back, and now they're 10 back, which this Metallic got back in front of Mayhew. So, I mean, they're not going to help themselves battling too much back there in that second pack, Seth.
And speaking of Josh Metallic here, currently in the 14th position, we know that Brian Schilling is up in the lead pack, and we are in the final stages of the bracket challenge. It is Josh Metallic versus Brian Schilling. Now, if Josh Metallic is able to best Brian Schilling here tonight, the two of them will go into a rubber match next week in the finale. But if Brian Schilling bests the 39 here tonight, that is it. Brian Schilling is the Season 58 bracket challenge champion.
And I'm sitting here looking very carefully at Danny Carroll and Brian Lavelle. Brian Lavelle is giving Danny Carroll some really hard shots here, and at one point Joe was on the bottom, pushed up a little bit, and I thought they were going to make contact with the front end of Danny's truck to the quarter panel of Joe's truck. I mean, when you get to this point, you're really trying to... Whoa, Knobsker, a little bit loose.
Oh boy.
Did you see that?
That was a bunch
Just
of checkup
a
right
tad
there.
bit. But at this point, oh wow, no, get up there. Anyway, with the bumping like they're doing right here between Lavelle and Danny Carroll, don't do that.
Not in the
It's
triangle.
it's really sketchy because you're trying to keep the bottom pin so you can get a bigger, better run coming off the corner, but at the same time, you don't have any room for air on that bottom, so a little bit high, a little bit low. And you're right next to someone else. I mean, Seth, you and I have ran quite a bit of times at Talladega or even Daytona, and we've always had that issue about pinching. And even though you're not legitimately trying to pinch them because you don't like them or you're racing, it's just so hard to figure out what you want to do, because when you're pinched, you're like, oh, we got pit stops happening.
Oh, pit
All right.
stops.
Yes, we do. Jeremy Jeffries, Grant Wesley, Joe DeSpirito, all peeling down. Ooh, Greg Palmer
Whoa!
almost got into the left rear quarter panel of Ken Roberts.
Who was that back here at the entry of pit road that almost went on the grass? Oh, here comes DeMar. DeMar's in. That was Bobby Farrell, I think, that I saw yell in the back.
Yep, I think you're right.
But back to my point, though, when you're pinching, Seth, all you're focused on is the exit and the entry. You're not even purposely trying to keep them pinched, honestly. And the guy on the bottom, they feel like they're kind of getting screwed over intently.
Oh, where are you going, Knobsker? Good grief.
Down on the apron there with his left side tires. That could have been trouble.
Oh, 3 wide. Okay.
Offskirt's coming in. Rodney Sullins, the lap truck. Wiley Coate, another lap machine. Kind of the battle within the battle right there between the 38 and the 5. They both ended up getting lapped here under green flag conditions. We know 2 drivers per caution get the free pass. Rodney trying to keep himself in that spot if at all possible. And here's drivers from that second group being led by Josh Metallic down on pit road.
What would you prefer doing at that point, though, Seth, if you were being in that pinch? Would you want to just would you rather be on the top trying to pinch, or would you be on the bottom being pinched? I mean, even though it's not on purpose, where would you want to be at that situation?
It's a difficult thing, right? Like, I honestly think I'd want to be in that middle line doing the pinching, because it's already been documented. You touched on it just earlier on, off of turn 2 especially, on that inside line, it wants to push up off exit. And if you're able to keep that truck on your inside, pinch down there, they have to kind of bail out of the throttle, half throttle a little to get the nose pointed, and they lose the straightaway speed down the backstretch. So it's a gamble, because it's not a guarantee that that truck to the inside isn't going to push up into you. But in the long run, if there is contact avoided, you've got a very good chance of yourself and whoever else is in your line in that middle lane getting that advantage and getting the track position down the backstretch into turn 3.
True, but I would rather be on the bottom, based in the middle, because if you hit the apron and bounce up, or someone bumps you the wrong way.
Hold on. Let's watch this. Let's see if Joe DeSpirito denies Grant Wesley a bonus point. He is.
He does.
I wondered if Grant was going to get a bonus point there, but DeSpirito says, nuh-uh.
Spirito just too fast.
How rude of him, huh?
No bonus points for the competition. As of right now, Joe DeSpirito is the only driver. No, he's one of 2 drivers of the Final 4 competitors that has led a lap. No, correction. Grant did lead a lap. I don't know when that happened, but it says the 88 has led a lap, Brian Schilling's led a lap, and Joe DeSpirito has now led his 15th lap. So Rodney Sullins is the only driver that does not have a bonus point for a lap led so far here today.
But
think
touching
all of
base
that
on
is
what I
just in
was
the
saying
fact that-
though, it's like if I just want you to picture this, okay? If you and I are racing side by side on the bottom, right? And I'm on the bottom, and you're in the middle line where you want to be, on the top. I mean, I want you to think about this. If I hit the apron and bounce up, or I get to the point where I push up a little bit, what happens? I'll touch you. You have more of a risk going up and hitting someone else or hitting the wall and getting into a bigger crash compared to someone on the bottom just checking up a little bit and being able to sort themselves out with minimal damage.
That's a valid point. And the interesting thing is, too, I've seen it go both ways. You talk about that middle line pinching the bottom down. I've also seen drivers on the inside line kind of move up a half groove off the bottom and kind of crowd that middle
You and
line.
I have done that one time in FTF Super Speedway, okay? You and I did that when, I believe it was, I think Bob Jones, quote unquote, got wrecked off the floor. Remember when we were coming to tribal? You had Ogo and Schallenberg at the top. Remember that?
Oh, I've done that a couple more times though, past that point.
Anyway, getting
It's
back
risky.
to it.
It's risky.
So them going green like this, I don't know. They might try to stretch it to go to a can or a can and a half, depending on where things fall.
Yeah,
I mean,
normally we end up
you can-
having, the final pit stop, if we go green from start to finish, that final pit stop is usually somewhere in the vicinity of, what was it, like 7 laps to go usually? Somewhere around like 59 to 61?
Well, what I'm wondering is, are they going to be focused on trying to get to the end, or do they actually feel a wreck will happen and cause a caution to where they'll just be able to clutch
Yeah,
based on the
big
past
question.
several weeks?
We ended up having a race that looked like it was going to be green flag from start to finish last week, and then ended out the entire session in the final 10 laps with 2 or 3 cautions, I think it was.
It was Matt's fault, okay?
Yep. We established that at the end of the broadcast that it was Matt's fault. The long one was entirely the fault of Matt McIntyre. I want the world to know this.
And you know,
Only because I
there's
saw
a
the
second
issue
pack
happened
here.
on pit road.
This pack here that's got leading with Joe DeSpirito. They're closing on Paglia, and then in front of Paglia was a driver who was actually right there with the group, which was Brian Lavelle. Did Brian get hit with a penalty?
As far as I'm aware, he did not. I didn't see anything on my telemetry, but sometimes the scoring doesn't always come through, showing who got a black flag and who did not, so he may have ended up getting a speeding penalty, but I can't confirm that. Also interested in this race within the race, because we've got 3 trucks in this lead pack that are battling for first 2 trucks 1 lap down. Bob Seminara in the 712, Wiley Coate in the 5, and Rodney Sullins in the 38. Right now, Rodney is the first car outside of a lucky dog position, so he's got to get around that 5 truck.
And if you look at what I was mentioning, it's like this pack here, they're going side by side. They're running and racing side by side a little bit too much. And I don't know if you paid attention to it or not, but Glenn Harris, when they got around Paglia, Glenn Harris was able to run down Paglia, use a draft, slingshot, and get right back up with his pack.
Right
So with them going side by side like this, I'm thinking that maybe this might end up slightly helping this second pack led by Kelly Causey.
Yeah, you've got 7 cars, 7 trucks up in this lead pack that are on the lead lap. I think you got about, is that 12?
3 or 4
trucks
back here with Metallic leading in between.
Bernie Mobbs trying to lead this group of 6. Bob Dixon and Denny Carroll. I believe that Dixon is a lap down. Yes, he is. Denny Carroll is on the lead lap. The 38 of Dave Melson, he is a lap down. So I think you've only got 2 lead lap trucks in this group of Mobbs and Carroll.
Kelly Causey is just at the line right now, and he's labeled in 14th, and he's trying to run down Palmer.
There's this group of 4 with Metallic, Mayhew, Terry Bombard, and Greg Palmer. They are all on the lead lap, and there's the group you were talking about, Jess, with Kelly Causey and Keith Hughes. 21 there, the Tim Richmond throwback or Mark Martin throwback. I'm not sure which. It might be both.
Wait,
of
who?
the 21 car.
Oh yeah, I got it. For some reason he's a yellow generic for me tonight.
Yeah, I know Tim Richmond ran a Folgers car, but I know that Mark Martin also did too. I'm not sure which this is an exact throwback
Didn't
to.
Schrader run a Folgers car in the 25?
Yeah, but it wasn't the red with the gold trim, though, was it? That was just mostly a red car.
Where's Kyle when we need him?
Right? Kyle or Qualls would know.
Kyle would definitely, because Schrader's one of the top drivers. Anyway, so now we got this little race within the race, like you were saying. But now the other race that we got to pay attention to, Seth. Lap 46, lap 47. Where are we going to go with pit stops? What lap will that happen on? And what I was referring to is there was one time in Insomniacs when I was running there where I was racing with John Wall and Chris Atkin, and we ended up starting to clutch on the last stretch, before the final pit stop. And we actually saved a pretty decent amount of fuel, enough to take a lot less than I believe the Lovels, who were pretty much down there with Greg and Dan at the point. And I mean, it worked out really nicely. So I'm wondering, are we going to see people try to start clutching early or clutching in that last stretch after the last pit stop?
Oh, we're not going to find out because Tim Knopfsker just got spun. Caution's out.
Wow. Never mind with that train of thought.
We always talk about green flag pit stops, and this tends to happen. I don't know why, but it does. Like it was a solo truck spin, potentially. I don't see anybody else involved.
Alright, I'm looking back. Him and Joe and Knopfsker got really close there. I can't tell if there was a move up or move down or anything. So I can't. You'd have to look up the replay in depth to
Well,
check
you know
that
who
out.
this helps? Rodney Sullins.
Rodney Sullins.
Bob Seminara and Rodney Sullins were the first trucks one lap down, and they will get the lucky dogs and be back on the lead lap. Here's a look at it. Going into turn 3.
It looks like the 088 moved down.
Yep.
Thinking he was clear and just was not.
Pretty big impact there with the back end of his truck. Fortunately, came down onto the apron before that second group entered in on the scene. We'll take another look at it here from the aerial view.
Had a driver way down there almost. Had a driver way down there a moment ago.
He's on a warning park, so.
Yeah, 24 never changed his line. 088, I think he was focused on the truck ahead of him, was trying to run in that line, and the two of them wanted the same amount of space. Knopfsker might have assumed Espirito was going to move further down there going into turn 3. That brings out the caution for the first time here tonight.
Whoa, Sheck and the 21 kind of got together a little bit. They seem like they sorted it out, but just fine. But Seth, you got drivers that are staying out here. You get a little bit of track position, I'm guessing, or leading a lap, and it looks like it's going to be Ronnie Sullins getting that lucky dog, like you said.
Yeah, looks like all the trucks that stayed out are lap trucks. They have to pit the second time around. Greg Hagley is going to be the driver that stays out of the lead lap trucks.
There goes Grant Wesley. Grant Wesley beat out Brian Schilling there.
Arguably been one of the best on pit road, I think. Whether it be caution or green flag pit stops, it seems like every time the 88 comes to pit road, he always comes out of pit road plus 1, 2, 3 positions, especially his execution onto pit road and green flag pit stops. Seems like he always makes a huge net gain.
Well, like we've said countless times before, this changes everything.
It definitely
so right now
does.
it's the lap 50, which gives us technically 16. If they come in right now to get a two cans, they can make it.
Yeah, because what's about 17 laps the minimum, and we'd be going back green with 15 to go?
The minimum would be 18, but if you play by Grant's rules, you can make 20.
Yeah, that's true. that's a valid point. I mean, I think we'd go back green on maybe 52, which would be 15 laps to go. So, yeah, definitely pit road, at least at this point, looks like it will be a non-factor for the remainder of this race. So the lap down trucks will come to pit road this time, and the 38 and the 712 afterwards will go around, get their laps back, and that will leave us with like 22 trucks on the lead lap. I was going to say 23, but the 088 of Tim Nofsker, who is involved in that caution, our first one of the day, has taken his truck back to the garage area where he will join John Godfrey. And yep, you're right. I'm just being told he was actually on a one and park. So with that one incident, he did have to retire out of the race. So that will leave us with 34 trucks remaining in this race with what will be around 15 laps to go. So we're going to take a quick moment here under these pacing laps to jump to side by side and get another word from our sponsor, Ultimate Garage Floors. The following presentation of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series on the Flatout Racing Network is brought to you by Ultimate Garage Floors. Ultimate Garage Floors is very active in the garage remodeling community, staying current with the latest technologies and custom configurations so that we can bring you the highest quality installations. As a Northern Virginia Exposy flooring installer, we focus on garages and commercial flooring to perfect our craft and bring you high results. In a space that gets as much wear and tear as your garage, you want to be able to trust that the cabinets and flooring we install are ready to withstand against high traffic and regular use. That is why we include a lifetime warranty with our services so that you know we stand behind the quality of our work. To get started with a free consultation, call us at 540-931-9006 or visit us on the web at ultimategaragefloorsva.net. That's ultimategaragefloorsva.net. Waiting for the lights to go out atop the pace truck to get us back underway as Grant Wesley assumes the lead after Craig Hagley led a lap and dove it onto pit road. A couple of things to follow up here. I'm guessing my scoring had not updated after the last lap when they took the caution. My scoring had Bob Seminara and Rodney Sullins as the first two trucks one lap down, but you can see up there on the top side, the 5 and the 38 Wiley Coat Rodney Sullins are the two that are getting the free pass, and we got a couple of waiver rounds as well. Mark Paglia and Keith Hughes. We know those two cannot make it the rest of the way since they weren't able to pit under this caution period. They're going to be hoping for a quick yellow. Bob Seminara looked like he was going to take a waiver round, but he came to pit lane, so he will remain one lap down here, along with Brian Lavelle, Dave Melson, Glenn Harris, Bob and Tom Dixon, Wayne Pribnow, Jim Blackside Jones, Mike Rogers.
I have to chime in here because I was like looking through the field, and it just took me a moment to realize our top three.
Yep, all of the playoff drivers right there, with the exception of Rodney Sullins, who gets back on the lead lap.
And I do want to point out, I mean, I was going through to look at some notables. I mean, Denny Carroll's up here, Bernie Mobbs is up here, Jeremy Jeffries, who had a really decent run a while back, and all of a sudden, the past few weeks haven't been kind to him, missing out the playoffs and all. And then you got he's up here. You got Ken Roberts up here, and then there's a guy who should have in his and other rights had several wins and post race stuff, and then finally got that one win, etc. And he's back up here, and I'm talking about that 77 machine. Seth, what do you think he's going to do here?
Oh, Donnie Garrett. We'll see. He was committed to the 24 last week. We'll see if he's committed to him here this week. They're going to be starting alongside each other. You talked about Ken Roberts. I did look back. It was March 31st of last year, back in season 55, ironically enough, when he went to victory lane for I think it was the first time in his Tally Challenge career, so a bit of a winless streak for him. And how about JT Mayhew up there in that 10th position? A couple of weeks ago, he picked up a Challengers Series victory in I believe it was the Bare Bones Series on Monday nights at Circuit of the Americas. So doing well here tonight at the Super Speedway, looking for, I believe, it'd be his first top 5 on the year if he can get up a couple more spots here on what we're hoping is the final restart of the night, but we'll have to wait and see because it's going to be 14 laps to go.
And I don't think you can count out that Lotus-colored Geico truck of Metallic either.
Yeah,
Whoa! Tom Dixon just got hit by Jim Black back here.
And we stay green, both the 86 and the 45 on the apron. Well, 45's going around, but there's no traffic around him, so green flag still remains out. And back to your point, Matt, yeah, this caution helps put Josh Metallic back into the hunt against Brian Schilling for the Bracket Series Championship.
Oh boy, looks like that aggression is starting to pick up here.
Oh, Ken Roberts got door banged by the 77 of Donnie Garrett, and he's going around. Gonna
No
come
caution.
back up the track.
No
Still in the
caution.
grass.
They're scattering up here, but there's no caution.
Yep, no yellow as of yet. Had a couple of scares there. One over in turn 1 and one out of turn 4 through the tri-oval, but still we remain under green. Your top 3 still 3/4 of your final 4, and I'm keeping my eyes towards the back of the pack, waiting to see that 38 of Ronnie Sones. If he can get up here, he picked up a couple of spots that last lap, jumped from 24th to 21st. He's on that inside line, trying to make forward progress.
And in that one moment where Ken Roberts went down low, I'm sure everyone thought he was going to come up, because when they scattered, there was a few drivers who let off the gas to prepare to try to miss a wreck or whatnot, to try to be courteous and respectful of the drivers coming back on. And what ended up happening, they lost so much momentum, they went from the front to the mid to the back real quickly, Seth.
Ken Roberts now falls into the category of drivers that are hoping for a quick yellow here, along with Mark Paglia and Keith Hughes, who we mentioned took the wave around, but they
Jim
cannot
Black's
make
gone.
it the rest of the way.
Jim Black has retired, I believe.
And you are correct. Yes, Jim Black going to join Tim Nosker and John Godfrey back in the garage area. Single file up here at the front, at least for the top 5. Looks like Denny
And-
Carroll's trying to do something. 6th place on back.
And
Trying
I'm
to get the
sitting
right
here-
rear of the 1. And Jeremy Jeffries into the wall. Denny Carroll makes contact. He saves it. They slide through the traffic. There goes Terry Bombard. Up and into Bernie Mobbs. Richard Martin. Brian Lavelle up and into the catch fence. Caution's
Ronnie's
gonna wave again.
alright. Ronnie got through it. Ronnie's okay.
Big hit for Bob Dixon in the 143. Bobby Farrell, look out as he has to come to a stop with Brian Lavelle spinning up in front of him. Caution out. Nearing 10 laps to go.
I was just going to comment on Rodney Stallings. He had gone to the very, very bottom, and nobody was there. It was like side by side in front of him, and he had gone to the bottom to make his own line to start trying to gather a run, and the wreck happened, Seth, but he was able to get through it. So that's a couple more spots and a little bit closer to the front. That's what's going to happen with that 38 machine. But, I mean, at this point in time, Seth, no one should have to pit that I'm aware of unless you're damaged or got involved just now. So I'm
This helps
wondering.
Ken Roberts, and 2 drivers that are going to have to pit are Mark Paglia and Keith Hughes, but the strategy to take the wave around, it worked for him, because now they'll be back in the lead lap.
And I'm sitting here wondering at this point in time, Grant's on this bottom line, Shelley's on that high side, Joe's on the bottom line behind Grant. We know that they want to get that bottom for the first corner and then jump up. That's what they always like to do. We've seen that pattern happen quite a bit here. But how do you perceive this, Seth? We saw that last restart with Donnie at the top with Schilling. What are you expecting on this one?
Here's the catch-22 for me. We know that Grant and Joe and Brian, all former champions, are very good super speedway racers. We know that every week they are fast. You want to work with somebody that's fast, but for all 3 of those guys, the last thing you want to do is help push one of your championship competitors to the victory here in this first race of the final round. So I don't know. I'm glad that they're down there in those trucks and not me, because I'd be in a kind of mental anguish as of right now of what do I do?
Actually, I wouldn't think too much of it. Honestly, I'd just be trying to run my race and just focus on the race itself and not really worry about them until the actual championship hit. You know, I mean, you got these guys up front, top three, right? They're all happy and dandy and whatnot. And the one thing that can mess them up is if they start focusing on the championship like this is the championship race right now. When you said that they need to approach it like it's a normal race, and that's what they should be doing. Just run their race until the last 5 laps and then make their decision on, okay, thinking about it, is it worth it? If I do that, who's going to go with me? Because with them having a small amount of laps left, Seth, you're not going to get a double chance. Like if you make a move to go to the high side and you fall back, there's a good chance you're not going to get that same opportunity to come back up. So you've got to time it just perfect if you're going to have a shot at this time.
And it's funny that you bring that up, because as we get closer to the end of this race, there is the possibility that this race could end under caution, and you don't have a chance. You don't have another restart to be able to.
He jinxed it. He jinxed it.
I did, but I got to bring this up because this has been something that we've documented in the last couple of weeks, and it has involved playoff contenders, whether it be in the Elite Eight or the Final Four.
If we have a wreck, then you're to blame, not Matt, not me, not Shelly, you.
I will take the blame on it, but it bears mentioning, because you go back to 4 weeks ago, the second to last time we were here at Talladega, it was Brian Schilling against Donnie Garrett. Brian told us, I knew the 77 had nothing to lose. I had a lot to lose to advance into the Final Four. I wasn't going to force the issue. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago, right back here at Talladega, it was Dante Ricky versus our race leader, Grant Wesley. Grant, exact same thing. I realized Dante was basically had nothing to lose. He was going to race me aggressively. I wanted a big picture race, make sure that I left with maximum points. And we talked earlier with Josh Metallic, who just missed out on the Final Four. He was in a position coming off of turn 4, coming to the caution flag to advance into the Final Four, got involved in an incident, spun through the grass, lost so many positions, so many points, and subsequently came up just short to Rodney Sullins for a chance to battle for this championship. If we end up having a wreck take place past the point of no return, and any one of our 4 championship competitors are caught up into it, they could be heading into next week, the official finale of this season, not necessarily in a must-win situation, but definitely in a points deficit that they would not have been in if they had maybe made a move differently or not made a move in the closing stage of the race. So how these 3 specifically, and then if Rodney Sullins makes his way up, which I'm certain he's going to here in the closing stages, how they approach this final run to the checkers, realizing that there's drivers behind them that are not battling for a championship and are in that nothing-to-lose mentality. Do they big picture race, or do they let the aggressive racer take hold and try to be that first one to the checkered flag and maybe end up costing themselves more positions than they would have gained?
Matt?
Like if I'm Grant right now, I'm just trying to get the heck out of Dodge and just forget whoever's behind me. I'm just trying to go.
Hypothetically, if I'm Grant, I'm just hoping that I have another caution, and then another caution, and another caution just to end the race in the yellow. If I'm sitting back there as, if I'm on this restart in Schilling's position, I'm feeling quite confident knowing I've got Donnie behind me, and behind Donnie's Josh Metallic, and knowing that, okay, well, you know, we'll be able to go and do something up here, and then you know, it's like I can't explain this stuff. It's like you got these people back here. You know, Grant's gonna do that run with Joe. Grant's gonna slide up in front of Schilling. Schilling will want to make a move for the lead, yeah, but he's got the favorable line right now. Why give that favorable line up? Okay, so you're not leading. You don't get the bonus point for the win. I get that, but if I'm Schilling and I finish second to Grant and there's no chance for me to actually get the win, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Because if you go that third line, 3 wide, yeah, you might get a run, but look at all the drivers behind that might fill that gap real quickly.
Better
And then
to
you
finish
got
second than 22nd, which is a possibility.
And then you got Joe down here. Joe's gotta hope that Danny Carroll kind of stop performing this. Joe can get up really quickly to that middle line, because I think that middle line is gonna move. No offense to Danny, I just don't see the bottom working too well from Denny on back because of the top two.
Well, it's going to be a very interesting restart here. Lights are out atop the pace truck. It will be 7 laps remaining here.
Where's Rodney?
Rodney is currently in the 14th position. He'll be starting the outside of row number 7.
Oh gosh.
He's close. He's close to getting up there.
Yeah,
and how about some of these storylines we got up here of potential Cinderella stories? We saw a couple of them in the early going this season. John Godfrey won the season opener, his second career win. Doug Kulik followed it up with his first career win at the debut race at BSR. You got Crivello up here inside the top 10, who got his first podium finish in a long time. Yeah, Jason Scheck in the 44s right there. The aforementioned Hulick's up here inside the top 10. He's going to restart in that 10th position. And Wiley Coate, wasn't he a lap down with Rodney Sullins not too long ago? He's up here now in the 11th spot.
And it's an unfair road for the number 5 machine.
Yeah, and he's got a shot of maybe picking up a victory here this season.
Well,
we'll have to see what we're racing to.
We got 7 laps to go.
If we end up getting an early caution here, we would get back green, but it's that lap 62 mark that basically we dub as the point of no return. We'll see if they reach that point as Grant Wesley up through the gears going to lead us back into turn 1.
Oh,
there's a wreck right off.
Kelly Causey, no caution, no yellow.
That started with Bernie Mobbs.
Jeremy Jeffries, Bobby Farrell, Kelly Causey, and there is Bernie Mobbs in the 31. Our pole sitter, no yellow flag though. Was waiting there to see if we were going to transition our banner from green to yellow or not.
So continue with the action. I'm going to go back and look.
Okay, as it's 3 wide, Espirito on the bottom, Wesley in the middle, now going to come down across the nose of the 24, and Josh Metallic, high, wide, and handsome on the top. It's got Jason Scheck and Doug Kulik. Things a little bit spread out here at the front. It all depends on that 3rd, 4th, and 5th line as to which lane's going to move.
And right now, it looks like the bottom is prevailing because you've got 4, maybe 5 trucks sucked. Now 7 trucks hooked up together, and they're starting to scoot away. But, like I say, gotta wait and see if we make it back around to the completion of this lap.
Big chain bumping, chain pushing almost there with the top 4 or top 5, 3 wide, 6th place on back.
From what I could gather on that incident, Seth, just to clarify that, it was a bad bump on that restart.
Tough break there for a couple of drivers.
It was
looking like they were going to have some promising finishes.
It was Kelly Causey gave a little bit of a bump to Greg Palmer, and Palmer got out of shape, touched the side of Bernie Mobbs' truck, and it was enough impact for Bernie to go way up close to the wall and come back down after impacting the wall, and that's what happened.
Out of curiosity, Jess, did the 22 of Palmer miss a shift? Because I'm seeing him out of the race due to an engine gearbox.
Well, let me double check on that.
Kelly Causey is also out of the race in the 00. They'll get credited, it looks like, for 31st and 32nd place, as it's the 2 playoff drivers up here at the front. Despirito now to the top, Wesley on the bottom, and Despirito is edging ahead through the center of 3 and 4.
They're getting all kinds of racy around these 2 championship guys. They're like, yeah, you guys may be going for a championship, but we want to win.
Ooh, Mark Paglia with a move up there in front of Josh Metallic, middle of the pack.
He blew second. Wide. That's what it was. I could hear the second when he went from first to second. I could hear it like making like a little click, 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 click noise. So I know he blew second.
A tough break there for Greg Palmer, who kept his truck on the lead lap all night long. I believe he restarted around the 13th position, and he is, as we mentioned, out of the race. Jeremy Jeffries, Bobby Farrell, Bernie Mobbs, they were a long ways back, and we're past the point of no return, so a caution won't really save them.
Okay, Seth, no, I don't mean to be Debbie Downer here. Grant bottom, Joe middle, Schilling top.
Sullins is 5th on the inside line as well. He's now 3rd highest running of the playoff drivers.
That high side's coming. It's got Paglia, Metallic, shoving. I don't know what's going to happen.
Ooh.
Bob Seminaire not able to get that draft from the Crivello machine based on being split through wide like that. We've talked and documented about being the last car on a draft line like this. It just will not let you stay up to the back end of someone in front of you. It's the way it goes on this. There's no damage to the 712. It's just how the draft works.
Contact!
There they go.
Garrett! Craig Hagley, it's off the surface. No caution.
There they are. They're wrecking
we
here.
got more in the back.
Up and over Jeff Crivello. Mark Paglia.
That's got to be a caution.
We'll be looking back at the replay. The caution is indeed out, but we got to stay up here at the front and watch this battle back to the line. It's Wesley Despirito. If he gets clear, does he jump to the top on the 88? Here he comes. Wesley throws the block. Contact made. Now JT Mayhew looking on the inside of the 24.
Chilling way up high.
Wesley's going to pick up the victory. All 4 of the playoff drivers are going to finish, I believe, inside of the top 7, but Grant Wesley fires the first shot with a checkered flag here tonight, his 3rd of the season.
Whoa, that was a well-earned fight to that end, wasn't
proverbial
it?
checkered flag. Let me be clear on that. It's not officially the checkered flag. It might as well be. They took the caution with 2 to go. Spirito was 3rd. Schilling was 6th, and Sullins was 7th.
So we've got 2 incidents to go back and look at. The one on the track, and then the one right there in the corner. Right back in 1 and 2.
See what I think the Donnie Garrett Craig Hagley was that dreaded push-up off of turn 2 that we talk all the time about. The 32 and the 77, they were racing close. I think that Hagley just pushes up just enough that he gets into the side of Donnie Garrett. They both go around, but they don't officially spin until they're below the yellow line, and then we'll look more in depth of what happened further up. I think it started with the 56 of Crivello.
Yeah, the 5 of Coates squeezed up, but again, I don't know if he thought he was clear or not, but he just squeezed up and pinched the 56 right into the 28 of Hagley. And that just created chaos behind them.
Looks like Ronnie Sullins, when he moved up, that kind of was a reactionary move by Wiley Coate moving up, and to your point, Matt, I think he thought he was going to be clear, or maybe just wasn't paying attention to the truck behind. Boy, another week where Josh Metallic is caught up in late race incident. Ken Roberts in the 55 was in that.
The 011 sent the 39 flipping.
Take a look and see if we can, from the 39's point of view, I think Mark Paglia, 28, I think he was caught up in this. Yep, he got a piece. Keith Hughes, Cy Jones, Wayne Pribnow, Mike Rogers, Doug Hewlick, Jason Scheck. Oh, it's a shame for Jason Scheck. Like he was going to be in line for a top 10. Ooh, close call there for, was that Dave Melson? Then the race back here to the line. Let's actually rewind it back and watch it, because that was a huge block thrown there by Grant Wesley. Almost didn't work out for either him or Joe Despirito. Somehow they kept the fenders on it, and as we watch this battle back to the line, JT Mayhew going to get his first podium finish of the season, 2nd place, and look at the 3rd truck down there on the bottom. That is the 21 of Brian Ronson, who's making only his, I believe, 4th start on the season, and he's going to get a 4th place finish. Well done to him.
Oh, yeah.
Denny Carroll can complete the top 5. I think that's Denny's first top 5 on the season. We bring it back to live. The white flag had been displayed just last time around for Grant Wesley. And Grant, his last victory was at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. What locked him into the round of 8. And now, as a Final Four competitor looking for his 2nd championship in 3 seasons, Grant Wesley is your winner here tonight. Win number 3 on the year. Now remember, this does not lock him up the championship, but he's going to certainly rack up some very valuable bonus points for winning. He will, I would assume, at this point in time, be the number 1 seed of the 4 playoff drivers going into the season finale next week. But, they all came in even, Matt. They're not going to be leaving with a huge gap between them based on the fact that all 4 of them finished up inside of the top 7. Despirito led the most laps, and 3 of the 4 led at least 1 lap here tonight.
Yeah, so the way I foresee this playoff, like when we get to burnt screwdrivers next week, it'll probably be Despirito on the top by leading the most laps. Then Grant maybe a point or 2 back, and then Schilling and Sullins maybe 1 back each from Wesley.
Grant,
So we might only have like 7 points between them.
Grant almost snagged that bonus point for most laps led. Despirito led 19, Grant led 16. And whoa! Oh, whoa, okay. Well, that's one way of doing a burnout. If this is bowling, that's a strike. Grant Wesley sliding it there through the tri-oval. Perfect hit into the 4 of Brian Schilling, and I don't know if there's enough power in that Valvoline Menards Toyota Tundra to be able to do a burnout here. Oh, well, Jeremy Jeffries is going to get him to the line at least. I mean, if a truck is smoking out of the engine, does that count as a burnout?
I wouldn't count it, but maybe. But then my question with that little chaos, is Grant's middle name Nico?
Yeah, right. I'm hoping that wasn't the truck they were planning on running in the finale next week, because yeah, I think that's headed to Dale Jr.'s graveyard. Oh, there you go. Now that's a friend. Jeremy Jeffries is going to do the burnouts for Grant Wesley. Look at that.
Nice. Oh, and
Wesley with the win. Here's something I'm wondering about. We're going to take a look at the full finisher results, but Grant Wesley and Joe Despirito are the only 2 drivers, playoff drivers, that have won here during the postseason. Both of them hold victories at the track we're going to next week, Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. Now, Rodney Sullins and Brian Schilling, they're definitely within striking distance. Great runs for them here tonight, but I think they're a little bit concerned that the 2 drivers that have the better numbers at BSR ended up finishing up here inside the podium tonight and were up there at the top of the laps led leaderboard.
well, and yeah, probably, but also you got to remember it's burnt screwdrivers. It's a newer track, and as we've seen the last pretty much every time they've raced there this season, and especially last week, the final few laps, you don't know what's gonna happen. I keep sounding like a broken record, but super speedway racing for you.
Always unpredictable. And we take a look here at the official standings. Obviously gave the shout out there to the great run for JT Mayhew, Brian Ronson there in 4th, Denny Carroll in 5th. How about Richard Martin? We didn't talk much about DMAR here tonight, and he very quietly made his way up into an 8th place position. And Donnie Garrett, we saw him get spun around after the contact with Craig Hagley. How in the world did he end up bringing it across the line in 9th place? I mean, that thing was all but wrecked, and somehow it's still going to get a top 10 performance. And Dave Melson, good run there for him as well. In 10th place, Dave was another driver that was a lap down in the early going, got the lucky dog under the caution prior to this race-ending one, and battled his way back for a top 10 finish. So great runs for a number of drivers here tonight. And then on the flip side, you've got 23 drivers that finished on the lead lap. Jeremy Jeffries, Bobby Farrell, Bernie Mobbs down towards the bottom there. We know that they all were involved in that stack up when we had the blown second gear for Greg Palmer on the final restart. Ken Roberts, he went around off of turn 4 through the infield grass, never got a caution to save him. So he finishes 21st. And then Bob Seminara never got the 8 of a free pass with a caution in the final 13 laps. So he finishes a lap down in 24th, along with Dixon, Pribnow, Rogers, Jones, and Dixon. And then you see the rest of the drivers that finished out of the race here this evening. A couple of them were running up towards the front for a good portion of this race. Brian Lavelle was up inside the top 10 for, I'd say, about 2/3 of this race, up as high as I think it was third or fourth place. And he visited the catch fence in the tri-oval. And Tim Nofsker started near the back, worked his way up to the front, but had that contact up inside of the top 5. And subsequently, he finishes back in at 35th. And tough break there for John Godfrey, one of our season opener. Another poor performance for the 7-Eleven as he brings it home tonight in the 36th position. But now it's time to find
Well,
out what the thought process is of a few of our playoff contenders, as well as driver that finishes on the podium for the first time this season, maybe first time in his career. I'm going to have to ask him in the case of JT Mayhew, but it'll be interesting to hear now. They've got one race under their belts. Now, what do they set their sights on next week at BSR? Let's see if
well,
we can. Oh, sorry.
real quick before you pull them guys up, I went back and I looked at the 77 to see how he got up to 9. He essentially channeled his inner Keith Hughes, and once he got going again from his incident, he just played wreck avoidance.
I think what we're learning here, if you're any of the playoff drivers, if you're running at the back, just wait till the end of the race and wait for the C's to part. Because it seems like we've kind of had the same script in back-to-back weeks. Long green flag runs at the beginning, and then kind of avoid the carnage in the latter stages of the race. But let's see if we can dial up our podium finishers. Let's start with last week's winner and the driver who led the most laps here tonight, bringing it home to third place, Joe DeSpirito. Hey, Joe, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey, I got you guys. How you doing?
Doing good. Well, man, I mean, you gave it your all there off of turn 4, coming to what was essentially the checkered flag there with this final caution of the evening, flying up there for 19 circuits. You get yourself that bonus point, not only for a lap led, but most laps led heading into next week. Things still look like they're going to be really close for the championship. But I believe I asked you this question last week, and I'm going to ask you it again here because last week it was to try and get into the Final Four. Now you're here in the Final Four. Were you gunning for that victory no matter what the cost, or were you a little bit kind of hanging back there, like reining back the aggression on that final run? Because it certainly looked like you were making a big move, but you might have been able to force the issue a little bit more.
Yeah. Was kind of trying to see who was behind me there, and I didn't really have anybody that I thought would stay with me. So a lot of the moves I was making were kind of in between going full go outside or inside, and Grant was doing a good job blocking too. Uh, he was blocking the whole track. So yeah, it was kind of more on the safe side. You know, you want to be gearing up for next week. I probably should have stayed behind him, and instead of finishing third, I could have finished second. You know, every point matters, but you know, it's hard not to go for the win sometimes too.
Now, next week, we head back to BSR. You and Grant, the only two drivers that have won this season at that track. Of course, your victory last week. So, what type of a race are you planning for next week? Because it seems like the last 2 weeks, whether it be here at Talladega or at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway, we've kind of almost followed the same script. We've had long green flag runs at the beginning. We've had a caution come out late, bunch everybody else back up, and then it's kind of been a couple of cautions near the end of the race. So, are you preparing for a race like that? Are you expecting we may see some more cautions early on with a lot more strategy? Do you have a pre-race strategy going into the finale?
Well, for some reason, to me, it seems like the last race, the finale, always seems to stay green. Long green flag runs. So you got to have those 3 good green flag pit stops. Um, and I feel there's probably going to be some aggression at the end, and it's probably going to end under caution again. There's probably going to be a wreck, somebody going for the victory. There's going to be some aggressive driving. So we'll see. You know, me and Grant, 4 points apart, so that's close. But you got Brian at 8 and Rodney a little further back. Those guys are going to be gunning for it. So yeah, you're going to be probably seeing a lot of 3 wide action next week.
We've hyped up a lot of the changes here this season. Of course, the addition of Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway to the schedule, alternating between Talladega, the extended amount of drivers that made it into the playoffs. But I think the thing that we've hyped up the most has been the biggest change, the two-race finale here in this final run of the playoffs. Now, you're obviously a multi-time champion. You've been able to best drivers in the Final Four before, but never in two races. It's always been a one and done for the season finale. You, along with your three championship competitors, finish inside the top seven here for this first race of the final round. Do you find the task of winning the championship, preparing yourself to win the championship, more difficult with it being the two races than it was with the original one?
Well, the first two titles that I won were they weren't the one and done. They were the 5 race points reset. So after 10 races, they reset everybody to um, I think the same points or very close in points. So then it was a 5 race shootout with points, and that was tough. Then the 1 race finale would make it even more crazy at the end. And I think this is probably the most difficult. This is tight. Everybody's tight in points, and there could be some tiebreakers coming down to the end here. Hopefully not, but yeah, this is probably the most difficult for sure.
Well, we are going to be definitely having to work the calculators next week for sure to see who is where in live action. But some great momentum for you here in these last couple of races. The victory last week, a podium finish here tonight. So hopefully that can translate into a good run, maybe a victory next week for your second on the season, and maybe get the nice little double there with the victory and the championship. But Joe, congratulations on the great run here tonight. Good building point for you in heading into the season finale. Before we let you go, the floor is yours for thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Thanks, guys. I want to thank you guys at FRN. I want to thank RTG, always putting on a good race on Thursday night. Mobs Motors. I want to thank my sponsor, Old City Fly Shop out of St. Augustine. And I want to thank everybody watching at home. I want to thank my dad, Uncle Travis, LC, Dan, all my buddies at work watching. And yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys.
That's Joe DeSpirito, third place performance here tonight, led the most laps, and he will be trying to close out the deal with the championship next week at BSR. Congratulations once again, Joe, and we look forward to seeing what this 24 can do next week.
Thanks. Good night, guys.
See if we can now dial up the driver of the number 338. The truck that makes me hungry every single time I see it, with those Chips Ahoy cookies featured all over his Chevrolet. He had a best finish this season of 6th coming into tonight, and he brings it home with a runner-up finish here this evening at Talladega. Let's talk with JT Mayhew. JT, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got a copy?
I do.
I'll tell you what. This truck looked fast here this evening. I thought for a moment there you might be en route to picking up that checkered flag, but you got a pretty good view of the contact between the playoff drivers up ahead of you. Did you have any kind of an avenue there to be able to maybe even take it 3 wide and edge ahead of those guys?
I was hoping Joe and Grant would go a little closer to the wall and I would sneak under him and take the win, but it was a great race overall, and I had fun, as always, here.
We've seen a lot of the non-playoff drivers definitely be up there in the closing stages, getting wins, getting top fives. You were up there inside of the top 10 pretty much the entirety of the second half of this race. We ended up seeing near the end of this one quite a bit of contact, a lot of drivers up inside of the top 5 spinning out, kind of mirroring what we saw at the end of last week's race. What were you able to do to stay out of that?
I try to, if I'm right on somebody, I try to feather the pedal so that I don't bumper hook them or myself. And I just try to be as vigilant as I can around me, but sometimes you can't avoid being taken out or hitting somebody, but it is what it is. I just try to be as clean as I can.
Now, we've ended up seeing in the course of season after season drivers race here, and we see them up inside the top 15, then eventually they're up inside of the top 10, and then we see them up there battling inside of the top 5. before we know it, they're making the playoffs for the very first time. Now, I know that there's going to be a bit of an off season before we head into season 59, but how important is this run for you here tonight in preparation for the upcoming season to potentially be a contender in the playoffs?
It really does give me a lot of confidence. I have 2 wins here on Thursdays in the past. Probably my favorite one of the two was drag racing Brian Schilling off turn 4. I got to his outside and beat him to the line, but I'm looking forward to the next season and hopefully making the playoffs and being a contender for the championship.
Well, JT, congratulations on a job well done, bringing it home for your best finish on the season in second place. The floor is now yours for thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Thank you guys. You guys do a great job. Earlier in the season was when I wasn't able to catch the races or drive in the races. I would catch the end of the broadcast when I would get home from work. Great job as always. I want to thank my teammates Jeff Crovello and Terry and Mitch Bombard and David Lawson, even though he's not here. I want to thank the admins of the series, Josh, Tim, Wiley. They all do a great job. I want to thank Sean Prime and Bones, David Cannon, the owners of RTG, best league I've ever raced in. And I just love racing here and hope to be doing it for a long time. And hope to talk to you guys again next week.
A great run here tonight for non-playoff driver JT Mayhew. Brings it home in the runner-up position here at Talladega Superspeedway. Congratulations, JT. Hopefully we see you finish up inside of the top 3. Maybe pick up that victory here in the season finale next week. Hopefully this is a sign of good things to come.
I hope so too, guys. Talk to you next week, hopefully.
And let's see if we can now go down to victory lane. I'm pretty sure the crew has finally been able to push that wounded truck all the way back into the infield and into victory circle. Let's see if we can dial up Grant Wesley. Grant, Matt, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Woo, yeah, I got you.
I'll tell you what, 3 victories on the season, second victory here of this playoffs. Now, we knew the goal was going to be clear for the final 4 competitors coming into tonight. Get the best finish possible to be able to have something to build off in next week's season finale. Can't get much better than a victory, but you had to work hard for it here tonight.
Yeah, that's pretty much the whole race. I kept looking and it was like Joe and Brian right there around me. And they stayed in the lead pack. And I knew that once I got down to the end, it was probably going to take a win, to put myself in a good position for next week. So yeah, basically, they're late in the race. I want to thank Denny Carroll. He was running second there behind me the last couple laps. And I feel like he could have pulled out at any time and tried to go around me, but he didn't. He kind of stuck with me. And, your friends are where you find them. And I definitely won't forget that from you, Denny. So thanks for that. But then, a caution came out. I knew that we were going to be racing going into turn 3. I seen Joe jump to the outside and Denny moved up in front of him. And, I was a little slow, a little lazy on the move. I was going to be kind of stuck on the bottom. And then I seen Joe, shoot to the bottom. So, I just parked it in front of him pretty much, and Denny was outside of him. So there's nowhere he could have went. So it kind of stalled his momentum. And that's kind of what won the race. He had another charge off of turn 4. I threw a couple blocks on him. I made my truck. I took lessons from Dante there. I made my truck as wide as I could, coming to the finish line and, going for that win and pulled it off.
I remember talking to you a few weeks ago, and I was talking about point situation. You said I would rather be on offense than on defense. Well, you're going to be on defense heading into next week with the championship on the line. Are you comfortable with that situation, or are you even going to be worrying about that and just going to still be approaching next week on the offensive?
Yeah, next week, as far as I'm concerned, it's a must win. I can't take the chance of, I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I just rode around and lost by a point. So I'm going to be charging hard just like I was in this one. This one, you seen me up in the 3rd lane there early in the race after I started 22nd. I took a lot of chances. I was stuck in that 3rd lane, it felt like, for half the race. And that's a place where you can get in trouble. So worked out for me this time. Hopefully I keep this good luck going, hang on to this golden horseshoe for a little bit longer, and maybe I can pull off another one next week.
Yeah, we certainly hope that, but with super speedways being so unpredictable, we know that it's just as easy to lose a race as it is to win a race, depending on what happens in one specific corner, even on one specific lap. One of the big things I was talking to Joe about this moments ago, that was the big focal point of changes that were made here this season was the 2 race final round. Normally, in the past, you guys came in as the final 4. You had one race to decide. Whoever finished the highest would end up walking away with the championship. Obviously, with the victory here tonight, makes your job a little bit easier. But do you find it a little bit more difficult or easier having that second race here in the final round?
Oh man. So, you've asked me before, do I like the new format? And I said, yes, I love the new format. It's awesome. However, the way I feel right now, I just won this one. I kind of wish it was over. But yeah, the intensity is through the roof. I mean, honestly, there's like a 10-point split between the 4 of us, and at Talladega in a 35 car field, it's still anybody's race. I don't that cushion of 4 points over second and 10 over fourth. That's not enough of a cushion to relax on. So um, this feels just as intense as a one race shootout, if not more.
Our last 2 races have been very interesting. We talk about the unpredictability of super speedways, and both races have kind of mirrored each other in terms of that unpredictability. Long green flag runs at the beginning, execution on pit road has been a key factor, but then late race cautions bunching everybody back up, and it's kind of a who's who of who's up at the front. A lot of having to avoid wrecks in the late going. So in preparation for next week, where do you, at least right now, kind of find yourself strategizing in terms of your predictions for next week? Do we see the long green flag runs again, or do we see maybe drivers feeling, no, this is my last chance, whether I'm a playoff driver or a non-playoff driver, of getting a checkered flag here in season 58? I'm going all out as soon as that green flag drops, and maybe we see some of the early carnage at the beginning settling into long green flag run. I mean, how do you approach next week? Obviously, being a former winner there at BSR.
Yeah. So as we know, BSR being the same track, there's slight differences, and uh, it's brought less cautions. So, we almost went caution free here tonight. So, I'm looking at a caution free race next week, or at least that's what I'm planning for. And what that means is I'm going to have to not make a mistake on pit road. I think for me, and knowing my past, that's going to be my biggest enemy, is I cannot speed on that pit road entry. I always like to be as hot as I can. I like to make some positions there. And that's going to be the one thing I'll probably lax a little bit on next week. I probably won't push it quite as hard on the pit road, just to make sure I stay out of trouble. But yeah, other than that, man, the intensity is going to be through the roof, and I'm going to treat it like a must win. And whenever I'm on the track, I'll be aggressive.
Well, we know when you're in must-win situations, this 88 is always a truck to look out for. So looking forward to seeing what happens next week as you try and preserve this points lead and pick up your second championship in the last 3 seasons. Grant, before we let you go, we're going to hand the mic over to you for some victory lane thank you sponsors and shout outs. And hopefully you shout out your body worker, because they got a lot of work to do on that truck.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to Brian Chilling. Whenever I spun down to do my burnouts, I knocked him out and myself out.
That's okay. We gave you a strike. We gave you a strike. It's all
I
good.
was
Okay.
gonna jokingly ask, is your middle name Nico?
Oh gosh. And Jeremy Jeffries, yes, he was doing burnouts for me. That was arranged. So yeah, that still counts. But yeah, so I'd like to thank it's a few guys that I worked with really well this race. Brian Schilling, Josh Metallic, me and him hooked up early in the race in the third lane, and man, it's great to find friends out there. Denny Carroll late in the race, just really appreciated all the tight racing there. I'd like to thank the owners here, Sean Prime, David Cannon, the admins here on Thursday, Josh, Wiley, and Tim. You guys, FRN, Matt, and Seth. I appreciate and really enjoy watching these broadcasts back. I'd like to thank my teammates at XFM, my friends and family for watching, and my girlfriend Brittany.
Grant Wesley gets this final round of the playoffs started out in a big way. He takes the checkered flag for the 3rd time this season here tonight at Talladega. We'll look to see if this might be the first step in picking up his second championship of his RTG Tally Challenge career. Best of luck in that, Grant. Congratulations. Go and enjoy the victory, and we'll see what happens next week at BSR.
Thanks, man.
And from one Hoosier to another, definitely good luck next week.
Thanks.
Feel like there might be some favoritism up here in the broadcast booth, but
I gotta stick with my Indiana guys.
Here's the interesting thing, though, okay? You got Grant Wesley, who's just come off a victory. He is the points leader. The points are in. Grant Wesley, 4 points over Joe DeSpirito, 8 points over Brian Schilling, 10 points over Rodney Sullins. That may not seem like much. 10 points may not seem like much. But let's remember, all 4 of our championship competitors finished up inside of the top 7. Things are super, super close, it seems like, with our playoff drivers every week in the finishing results. And Grant, right here, told us his strategy next week. He's going into that finale in a must-win mentality. That says to me, if you're DeSpirito, Schilling, and Sullins, doesn't matter what your strategy was 5 minutes ago, you got to go in a must-win strategy as well.
Right, because like with how unpredictable these races can be, if I were Grant's position, oh yeah, I would definitely be going in with that same mentality. Get up front, get out of Dodge as soon as possible.
We've obviously had the opportunity here this season to see the debuting of Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway on the schedule, how it has played out. It's led to some very interesting finishes, some unorthodox finishes. The one thing that always seems to be a kicker, and Grant touched on this, has been pit road. Pit road has always seemed to be a huge player into the outcome of the race, whether it be for the race victory or eventually in our playoff picture. Do we see the racetrack itself or pit road be the deciding factor potentially for the championship next week?
To quote Michael Norman, yes.
Yes.
There's with how they're not as used to how they enter pit road, that has caused some more issues, but also the racing at Burnt Screwdrivers has been a lot closer and a lot more chaotic.
Now, one thing that I touched on here in this race was the fact that the fast drivers are going to work with the fast drivers. And obviously, all 4 of our remaining playoff drivers have fast trucks. They proved it here tonight, finishing up inside of the top 10 in this first race of the final round. They worked together, some of them did. Grant, Brian Schilling, they worked together. We saw Rodney Sullins, he was working with Joe DeSpirito and Donnie Garrett in the early stages. Is that out the window next week? Are you still going to work with those drivers knowing that they're battling you for the championship? Or as soon as you get to their back bumper, are you out? Are you moving low? You moving high, trying to push them back as deep in the field as you possibly can?
I'm working with them until we get to that point of no return, and then it's see ya.
Well, it will be interesting to see what drivers have for strategy in the early going, and how quickly it may end up changing when we get to the midway point, especially towards the end of the race. Bear in mind, 4 drivers, they're going into next week battling for the championship. We could have upwards of 32, 33, 34 drivers that are going in just trying to end out the season with a checkered flag, our proverbial X factors, if you will, in close quarter super speedway racing. It's the first time ever that we have had a 2-race final round. Grant Wesley has fired the first shot across the bow of Joe DeSpirito, Brian Schilling, and Rodney Sullins. Can they answer that call and maybe be able to top Grant Wesley next week to be able to pick up the championship for Schilling and DeSpirito for yet another time, for Rodney Sullins for the first time in his career? Again, remember, it is whoever accumulates the most points in these 2 races that will walk away with the championship. But want to thank Jessica Shelton for joining us here tonight. She unfortunately had to dip early, but appreciate her joining us in the broadcast booth. Matt, another wild one here tonight. I mean, just when we think we've got it figured out, looks like long green flag run to the finish. Back-to-back weeks, we get surprised with a quick yellow near the end of the race, and then it's a survival fest in the closing stages. Fortunately, all 4 of our championship competitors made it through in this first one. May not be so lucky next week. Appreciate you joining me in the booth for yet another wild one here at Talladega.
It was a lot of fun, and I'm definitely excited / nervous for those 4 guys next week.
Well, thanks to everybody that tuned in this evening. Let us know whose train you're on. We already know Mr. Hoosier over here, who he's going to be rooting for, but are you on Team Wesley, Team Despirito, Team Schilling, or Team Sullins heading into next week in the final race of Season 58? A championship is about to be decided here in the Rolling Thunder Gaming Tally Challenge Series. Also, almost forgot, want to congratulate Brian Schilling on winning the Bracket Series Challenge here in Season 58, besting Josh Metallic. So he officially locks that up for, I believe, I'll have to double check, but I believe he's now a back-to-back champion of the Bracket Challenge Series. So congratulations to him. We'll see if he can close it out with a double championship next week in the finale. But for Jessica Shelton, Matt McIntyre, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for joining us here on this Thursday evening. Tune in next week for the season finale, Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, we'll see you guys next week as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's